So a couple of quick housekeeping notes before we get started. Everybody is on mute right now, so everybody is going to be muted during the presentation. If you have a question, you should see a Q&A box that you can click on and ask a specific question. We'll either answer those live here while I'm talking and working through various areas, or we'll answer them through chat if that's a better mechanism. So please do feel free, ask any and all questions that you have, and then we'll try to address all of them as we're working through the topics here today. And if it's not something that's directly related to a topic we're dealing with in the presentation, then we'll answer that in the Q&A after. A couple of important dates before we get started. As you can see, we're about 13 days away, a little over 13 days away from the actual event. But before that, there's one important date, which is the 23rd. April 23rd, here coming up next week, is your last opportunity to edit your profile or set up any peer-to-peer campaigns. So after the 23rd, the site will essentially be locked in its state. So all nonprofit profiles will be closed for edit access. You won't be able to make any more modifications, and you won't be able to set up new campaigns or edit campaigns. So if you have donors that you've been in conversations with about starting a campaign or having a campaign on the day where they can leverage their social network, which we definitely recommend, you have about a week to get that set up and established and ready to go before that profile is locked down, before the site is essentially in the state that it's going to be for the Gives Day. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask, but the 23rd is that last day to make those changes. So please make sure that you go in and review your profile, make sure everything looks good, looks like how you would want it to look to the public on May 2nd, on the day of. So of course, the other important date is Gives Day is May 2nd from midnight to midnight. And the other one is distribution. So when can you expect to see your check from the day distributed from the Community Foundation? So that should come out sometime before June 30th. Sometime before or around June 30th is when you can expect to see those checks being distributed. So after the foundation is able to go in and reconcile and get everything lined out. So with those dates out of the way, we're going to talk a little bit about the administrative back end. We're not going to spend too much time on the front end here. Again, if you have questions, please feel free to ask them in that Q&A, and we will get to those questions. But we're mostly going to be focusing on the back end of the site. Right now, you can go into, if you log in, you're going to see a view that's similar to this one. You're not going to see these other options up here. These are administrative options, but you'll see this should look familiar to you as far as your profile management is concerned and what you're able to manage here. When you are here, we're going to be talking about how you can get your donation information. If you're an organization who participated last year, you can get your donation information right now from this area. And if you are participating for the first time this year, this is where you're going to be able to see right now if you have any scheduled donations that you can anticipate, or if you are looking at this after the day, this is where you'll go to find all of your donations and donor data. So clicking on this donation information tab here, you have two different tabs. You have processed donations and you have scheduled donations for the day. Processed donations are donations that have actually been processed through the system. They're real payments that have happened. For this organization, this test organization, we have these 33 processed donations that have come into that test organization when we were testing and preparing for the day. Also, you would be able to see right now if your organization has any scheduled donations by clicking on scheduled donations for Gives Day. So if your organization has pre-scheduled donations, which are open right now, you'd be able to see those and anticipate, well, we can expect to at least have X number of dollars from scheduled donations coming in, not including what we're actually going to get on the day. You can export either of these lists with this export button over here. So you can really easily export this into a CSV and then upload it into your own donor database, or however you want to manage that. You can do that both for process donations and for scheduled donations. You should be able to export that. It'll show you the donation information, so who made that donation, what was the amount for, when did they make it, and some contact information for that individual, as well as a couple questions. Are you a first-time donor to this organization? Was this made in honor or memory of someone? And then whether or not it was tied to a campaign. So you should be able to see, if you have 3 or 4 or more campaigns running for your nonprofit, you should be able to get an idea of which donations came from which campaign and which came directly from your profile, so your site, your organization's page. If you need to, you can send a receipt from this area. So you can send a receipt here to any donor who asks, I didn't get my receipt, I'm having an issue with that. We're also implementing some functionality in the system that'll allow donors to get their own receipts from the front end of the site, but that'll be live after the event. That won't be something that's live now, but after the event, donors should be able to go onto the site, enter their email address, and get their donation email, their email receipts with their tax receipt. So another point on that, the system automatically generates tax receipts from the system. So the system automatically generates a tax receipt based off of the donations that donor made during the day or during scheduled donations. So you don't have to worry about sending your donors tax receipts for their donations. The system will take care of that automatically, but always a good practice to send a follow-up email to that donor thanking them for that donation personally, and that's where you can customize a message for that donor or those donors that gave during the day by exporting this list of donations that you've gotten there. So one thing to note is that the view that you're familiar with here is going to change. On the day of, the view is going to change to something a little bit more restricted. So when you log in on May 2nd, you still have the ability to pull your donor list, but you'll notice that our site here looks a lot different. This is the same administrative backend that you would log into, but the site changes on the backend. There are a couple of reasons for this. The primary reason is to make sure that the site is optimally focused on the best donor experience possible. We want people getting onto the site, having the fastest page loads they can possibly have, having the best experience in moving through the platform and giving their donations to the organizations that they care about. That's really what the focus is on that one day. And so because of that, we restrict those other tabs and other areas for you to go in and take a look at because it just makes the front end of the site work a lot easier. So if there are a lot less nonprofits in there clicking through all those areas, it's a lot less traffic that the website has to pull up, and so it makes that experience on the front end of the site a lot faster and a lot more responsive and a lot more pleasing to donors in that way. So other reason is you'll be closed down anyways as far as editing a lot of those tabs and areas. So right now you have the ability to go in and change your donation levels, to add programs, to add multimedia like YouTube videos and images, to manage your campaigns. But once you're actually on the day of, you won't have the ability to really manage any of those things. And so we restrict that access. However, you will still, as you see here, have access to your donor list. So you'll be able to come in here and look in real time and just refresh the page as often as you like to see donations coming into your organization, to see who's giving those donations. So if you want to reach out immediately to those individuals, or you want to get this list regularly throughout the day to see how things are going, this is the best way to do it. You log into that administrative portal and you can take a look at this list. You can search for specific transactions this way by last name or by the date and time of that transaction, or you can and you can also export this list like we could on the other page there. So speaking of so looking at scheduled donations, we were talking a little bit about how you can look at what you're anticipating to get. So you're anticipating that you might get these scheduled donations by going to donation information, scheduled donations for GiveStay. This is before the GiveStay, before the site locks down there. You can look and see what scheduled donations you can anticipate receiving. Important thing to note here, those scheduled donations have not actually processed yet. So the St. Louis Community Foundation does not yet have that money. That donor's credit card or bank account has not been charged for that amount. They've simply indicated that they've scheduled that donation to be processed on GiveStay. So you won't actually see any of those scheduled donations in the process donations area until GiveStay, in which they run. Normally those donations for all the scheduled donations for the day run within the first hour or so of the event. We try to run those right away. So you should see those within the first hour or so, which is going to be midnight to 1 a.m. or so. You should see all those scheduled donations move from the scheduled donations area to process donations. And then you'll be able to see them show up here. So when you go in here, if you were to go in right at midnight, you might not have, even if you had 20 scheduled donations, you might not see anything here yet because we hadn't quite processed it right at midnight. But within an hour, you should see all those scheduled donations show up in your GiveStay donations dashboard here where you can take a look at them. So they will show up there, but they are not actually processed at this point in time. So just something to note and be aware of if you're wondering, well, why am I not seeing that in processed donations, etc. And then with that, I mean, really, that's about it for this portion. There's not a ton other pieces to go over. If folks have specific questions that they'd like to ask about things pertinent to GiveStay, to scheduled donations, really to anything, now is a perfect opportunity. Use that Q&A, start populating that with your questions, and we will be happy to answer them. If you're having a challenge with your profile, if you have a question about matching funds, or if you have a question about anything about the functionality of the system, whether it's the back end of the system or the front end of the system, now is a good opportunity to do that, to ask those questions. And please do remember that profile management and campaign management closes on the 23rd. So you have about a week to get everything cleaned up and in good shape, and make sure that your profile is published and live on the site, that it is that all your campaigns are in there, that you have all your images set up, that your profiles on the public site look like you would hope they would look. Definitely important to be aware of that date, because beyond that point, it will be too late to manage or change those things. So we're getting a few questions in here. I'm going to keep the recording on for right now, and then we'll kind of see how it takes us. If they stick to the general topics of the day of, then we'll keep recording so other folks can use it. If we start veering off into other areas, I may stop the recording, but I'll be happy to stay on the line and answer those specific questions. So Stephen asks, are scheduled donations eligible for the first donation prize? That's a great question, and a great point to bring up. So scheduled donations do not count towards donation prizes, hourly donation prizes. So I believe, and Neosha, feel free to unmute yourself and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe the way that prizes are established is that any timed prizes, the hourly prize or power hour, etc., scheduled donations are not eligible for those.
That is correct.
And I think specifically, yeah, sure. I think, Stephen, specifically you're referring to the first donation of the day prize. So for that donation, that will be a real-time donation. So we will not count a scheduled donation for that first donation. So it's going to be the first live donation to the site on the day of. Is there a document that details the time for prizes that we can use to share with donors? Yes, I believe so. Neosha, is there something publicly available that they could share?
Yes, so if you are logged into your admin portal, you will be able to access this document under the resources section. There is a document called 2018 Prize Rules, If you scroll down, Joe, you'll be able to see it on the left-hand side. Keep going. There it is. Go back up a little bit. 2018 is under planning tools. 2018 prize schedule and rules is what you can do. It's pretty detailed. I would recommend that you only pull the information out that is pertinent to your donors so that they do not have to read the entire document. But this document outlines everything you need to know regarding the prizes and how they will work and how they will be pulled throughout the day. This year, we tried to make it a little bit easier to read by breaking it into different categories based on budget size. So if you have specific questions about that, please send us an email at info@stlgives.org if you need more detailed explanation.
Sure, thanks. Somebody asked, could you please explain how matching funds work? Yeah, absolutely. It's another great question. So matching funds work. So I'll go to that section here in the administrative side so we can all be on the same page about what we're talking about. So in your organization profile, there's a question that asks, do you have matching funds? If you indicate that you have matching funds, essentially those matching funds can originate from pretty much anywhere. This is up to you as an organization to determine, do I have a donor that wants to match up to a certain amount, or have I found a sponsor, a company or something that's going to match a certain amount? If you have that, you can enter this matching funds amount here. Whatever amount you put in will show up on the front end of the site on Gives Day. So if we look at the profile here for an organization, on Gives Day, it's going to show up right above this Donate Now button alongside the donation ticker. So alongside, this is our donation ticker for the unique organization. It says, this is how much you have raised through the system. If you have matching funds, that will show up alongside this, this donation total. So you'll have two numbers here. You'll have your donation total and you have your matching fund total. So for example, if we put $1,000 here as the matching fund amount that we had, that $1,000 would show up as the remaining match amount. Now the way that will work during the day is that the match is a one-to-one match. It's always a one-to-one match. And how that will work is if a donor, let's say a donor comes to your site, you have $1,000 in your match pool and a donor donates $100 to your organization. In that situation, what you would see here on your profile is that your match fund amount would subtract and go down to $900. So it's a dynamic feature that's updating based off of real-time donations. So it would go from $1,000 to $900, and your actual donation total here would go from $0 to $200. So $100 for the real donation and $100 for the match amount. And so as you're going through the day, that matching amount, that match pool gets subtracted as donors are donating. So they could see, as you're going along, whether or not you're making progress towards, having that donation amount. And maybe someone gets near the end of the day and you have $100 left in their match, and they say, well, I'll go ahead and do that. Just I was only going to give 50, but now they've got 100 left. I might as well donate that 100 to make sure they get that. So that's how that will work. One important thing to know about matching funds and about how that number will display here on your organization profile. One is that matching funds do not count towards prizes. So because they're not donations that are actually being processed through the system, they can't be verified by the community foundation. They can't be verified for authenticity, and because of that, they're not included in the prize totals and what's eligible for a prize total for any particular prize. So what that means is that your donation total here is not a very reliable indicator. It's not a reliable indicator if you're using matching funds of how much your whether or not your organization is in the running for a prize. This is going to be a number that is really encompassing all of the money that you're raising on the day. So your matching funds, your real donations. If you get a prize, if you happen to win a prize during the day, your donation total might go up by that amount. So this number is really just representative of everything that you're collecting, but may not be representative of your actual donations processed through the system that would lead you to win a particular prize. So important thing to note there. If you're looking for really specific numbers, again, logging into the back end and looking at that list, those are your real process donations. You should be able to total those, and that's going to be your most reliable number for where your organization is in the running for any particular prize. Another person asked, how would someone submit their matching grant fund? Hopefully that answers that question around where you would put that information in and how that would work. But if there are more questions about matching funds, please do feel free to ask them, and I'll try to scroll through. We've got a number of questions here, so I'm just kind of going chronologically in the order that people ask them. So we may come back to matching funds if you have another follow-up question there. So somebody else asked, where do we enter our campaign goal? Is this goal shown to the public? Yeah, so if you are, if a donor has set up a campaign, essentially they will enter their goal when they set up their campaign. You have the ability as an organization to set up campaigns if you want to, but the real best way to set up a campaign is to get a donor to do it because it leverages their network. The entire idea of having a campaign, a peer-to-peer campaign, is that you're getting your donors to leverage their social networks to contribute more to your organization than you otherwise would have been able to. So if you create a lot of campaigns as an organization, it doesn't necessarily, in a lot of cases, meet that aim, but you're more than willing, if you have a specific piece that you want to try to raise funds for, to use a campaign for that purpose and to share that. So, oh, we can't create a campaign this way. I've closed it down. So essentially what you would do if you're looking at your campaign is you would establish your goal here. When you're filling out the form, there's a goal amount. And you would establish that goal amount, and then that goal amount would display to the public. So if we had a campaign, it would display down here for this organization. Let's see if I can get one to do this. So I'm going to approve this campaign. And I may have a little issue because yeah, okay, we got it. So you'll see your campaign here. So I haven't put in a lot of details here. This is just a test campaign to work on the functionality, but you'd see your image here. You'd see the label of the campaign and then a little bit about that specific campaign, and you'd see your goal. So this goal is dynamic. So if a donor is halfway to their goal, it'll say 50% funded at 500, and you'll see the status bar progressing throughout the day. So donors will be able to keep track of those campaign goals throughout the day, and donors that establish campaigns will be able to keep track of who's donating to their campaign, so that they can, if they need to, and they call their mom and they say, hey mom, did you donate to my organization or not? And mom says, yeah, I sure did. The campaign owner could go in and take a look at that donation history and say, mama, I found out that you didn't actually donate. I'm going to need you to go ahead and do that for me. So you will be able to see that goal progressing throughout the day for campaigns there. So another question about match. So when do scheduled donations close? Scheduled donations will go pretty much all the way up until the event. So donors will be able to schedule their donation up until the event, at which point it'll close down. And then after the event, there won't be the ability to schedule or make donations. So donors can schedule those donations right now up until the event. And then during the event, donate live. But after the event, those options will be removed. They won't be able to donate through the site anymore. Will donations that I see from 2017 in our portal disappear, or will I just have to filter them out? So they won't disappear. You're always going to have access to your donation history. You're not going to have to worry about donations going away. But you should be able to see, based on transaction date and time, what donations have come in this year compared to last year. So if you're looking at your 2017 numbers, easiest way to filter is by using this transaction date filter. You can do that and use something like between, and you can put it to be between last year's date, and then you'll only get last year's date, or you'll only get this year's date. So you can look at a specific date range for when that donation comes through there. And then if you apply any filters here, it should apply to what gets exported. So if you said, I just want an export of my 2018 numbers, you can set your date range here to be, you could do the first through the third here, and then just export that list, and that should give you all your 2018 donations. Got a question about campaigns. After 423, our employees cannot set up their own campaigns for our organization. That's correct, Stephen. So after 423, the site is essentially locked in whatever state you had it in at that time. So we're locking down the ability to edit campaigns, to create new campaigns, to edit your organization's profile, to make any changes there. And the rationale behind that is that it makes sure that the site is as professional and as clean as it possibly can be during the actual event and leading up to the event. So as we get closer to the event, more and more people are going to be looking on that site and looking at the organizations that are on there, just kind of browsing around and taking a look. And we want to make sure that the presentation of that site is as professional as possible, so everybody has their logos, all the campaigns are there, everybody is ready to go a week or so before the event, so that we don't have a scramble at the last minute or a lot of organizations that don't have their profile image up, or whatever the case is. So you need to get all that information set up, and you need your profile essentially to be what it should be in all your campaigns on the 23rd. Treat the 23rd as your final deadline, your final day to get everything sorted out and be ready for the event. Jan asks if you can give us a list of the hour prizes. Yeah, Jan, so if you go to resources, you should have access to this in your back end here. Excuse me. But if you go to resources, nonprofit resources here, and you scroll down to planning tools, you should be able to see 2018 prize schedule and rules. If you click on this, it'll open up the list of all the prizes for the day. So here are your hourly prizes, and they go throughout the entire day. Every hour pretty much has a prize here for different budget categories, different budgets of organizations, and different types of hourly prizes there for different situations. So this is where you go to take a look at that and start to plan your strategy for what prizes you're going to shoot for. Jennifer asks, can we still enter matching funds after the April 23rd deadline? No, so everything is going to be closed down on the April 23rd deadline. So you essentially, if you were to go to your organization profile on the 24th or any time after that, you would essentially be able to click on it, but you would be view only. You wouldn't be able to actually edit or make changes to your profile. So you need to get those matching funds in or before April 23rd. Somebody said, to be clear, if you use matching funds, you're not eligible for prizes. No, so you are still eligible for prizes. It's just the total amount that you would see on your donation. This total that you see would not necessarily be a good number to represent whether or not you're in the running for a prize. So matching funds are not eligible for prizes, are not eligible for the total that would go towards the prize. So for example, if you were in the running for an hourly prize, it said the most dollars raised during the hour. If you had $1,000 in matching funds and your donors were all donating during that hour, that $1,000 in matching funds would not be eligible for the count towards your total raise during that hour. However, you would still absolutely be eligible for that prize. So please do use those matching funds, and don't shy away from using those. They will not impact your eligibility for a prize outright. They just the amount won't be included in the total towards any prize. Mel asks, do we have to have a campaign page? Absolutely not. If you don't want to use campaign pages, you don't have to use them. They're there if you want to leverage that extra feature and that option to try and leverage your donor base a little bit more. Some organizations find that very successful. Others don't have that same success with that area. So absolutely up to you. You do not have to have a campaign page. Anne asks, how can a donor fill a campaign form? So how can a donor fill out a campaign form? A donor can fill out a campaign form right now by going to the site. So they'll navigate to the front end of the site. They will find your organization. So they'll search for your organization, they'll find it, and then they'll click this Create Campaign Page button. This should walk them through creating a campaign page, making them work through that form and setting up those pieces, and then they'll submit that to you for approval. So essentially, they'll fill out that form. They will set up a donor account so that they can log in to make changes to that campaign. And then they will submit that campaign for approval. Really important for you as an organization to know that you need to approve a campaign for it to be live on the website. So if you have campaigns, whenever a donor submits a campaign to say, I want to submit a campaign here, I want to raise money on behalf of this organization, you have to approve that campaign, review the details, and approve that campaign. So you will get an automatic email. You will get an automatic email as the organization that a campaign page has been created. So it'll say, a donor has set up a campaign page. Here are some of the details. Log in and approve that campaign so that they're live on the website there. Someone asks, when someone donates to our org, is there an automatic messaging system that sends them a thank you and a notice about tax deductible info, or do we need to follow up personally? So the system will send a couple of automatic emails anytime a donation is submitted. It'll send an automatic email to you as the organization to notify you that you just got a donation for X amount from this donor. And it will also send a tax receipt email to the donor that says, thank you for your donation. Here's your donation list and history. Here are the organizations you donated to and how much you donated. This is your tax receipt. Use this for your tax purposes. But it will not send any kind of personalized thank you from your organization. So that's where you'll want to go in, get that donor list from your donation information area, pull that process donations list, and then follow up with those donors individually or as a group with a separate thank you email, because they'll just get that receipt email that lets them know how much they donated, who they donated to, and that's their tax receipt. Ruth asks, would it be wise then to create a matching fund as a campaign? That's a great question. I've never been asked that question. I'm not exactly sure. I think that it would, I guess it depends on what you're really going for. So with the campaign, using a matching fund as a campaign, you could certainly do that. It's not going to impact your total for the day. So if we're looking at our Gives Day mode and you have $1,000 in matching funds and you don't use that matching fund functionality and you instead opt to use a campaign page, it'll show up like this campaign page, and you could say, I guess you could say, our match amount, help us match this. In order for that, progress bar to be pushed forward, donors have to give specifically through that campaign. So it wouldn't count all the donations that your organization is getting. It would only count ones that come through that campaign page. So that's maybe a little bit of a wrinkle that would make that not work as well. It would definitely give you kind of the progress bar, percent funded, that functionality to use for a matching fund. But the only donations that go through this that are counted towards this goal and towards this percent funded are those that are given through this campaign. So when a donor gives directly to this campaign, if they give $100, that raises this to $100. That also raises your number to $100 because that donor gave that donation to you, to your organization essentially, but it's being tracked through this campaign. So you could try to use that in that way. You just have to make sure that, if you're trying to leverage that match amount and indicate that on the site in a realistic way, that you're essentially sending everybody through this campaign page rather than through your main site here, your main page. Jennifer asks, when will we find out if we win a prize? You will find out during the day for most, if not all, the prizes. And Neosha, you can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe those will be announced throughout the day.
Yes, so a communication just went out to every user in the system this morning at 10 o'clock. The prizes will be announced at specific times throughout the day. So we decided this year, just so that we can better be prepared for the day and get enough sleep so we're not up for 24 hours, that prizes will be on the leaderboard at 6 a.m., noon, 6 p.m., and midnight. If we are up and if we're really excited, there could be a possibility that we would post before then, but I would just direct all of your viewers and your attention and donors to the leaderboard on the website. That would be the best way to know which organizations received which prizes at what particular time.
Great. So we've got a few more questions here. We'll keep working through these. Thank you for those of you all who are asking questions that I haven't gotten to yet. I'm working through them right now. So we've got one, from Lori, can you speak to the program tab a little? Yeah, so the program tab is essentially a tab that allows you to describe your organization in a little bit more detail. So maybe your organization does a few different things in the community. It has a few different goals and is working on a few different types of programs. You can add those programs here and describe, this is this program we're working on, in youth education, and this is a description of that program and who's benefiting from it. And here's some additional information here. So it allows you to just kind of fill out your profile a little bit more. If you use that, it'll show up in this programs tab here. And you'll be able to see those programs. Donors will be able to look at those programs and kind of scan through them. So it just gives you an opportunity to do a little bit of a deeper dive into your organization if people are kind of on your page anyways and they're curious about your organization and they just want to know more about what it is you do. So a good opportunity for educating the public. In addition to trying to get a donation from an individual, you can also educate them about what it is you do, which can pay off down the road as you gain more awareness from those people. Liz asked, missed your explanation, some of your explanation on campaigns. I understand it's ideal for someone outside our organization is going to host a campaign to set up their own page versus us doing it for them. But if I have their personal info, email, verbiage, etc., and set it up for them, what's the downside? So the downside is that they will not be able to log in to edit or maintain or make changes to that campaign up until the closure date on the 23rd. They won't be able to access that information and kind of do that. They will still be able to get the link to use. So there's not a huge downside there. They just won't have access and ability to manage that campaign. It'll be your campaign as an organization. You'll be in charge of making any changes to it. They won't have the ability to access it. If they go and create a donor profile and create their own campaign, they'll not only be able to manage that campaign, they'll also be able to get other benefits from having a donor profile, which include having a saved payment history. So all of their they'll be able to essentially save their payment details so they can make their donations even faster. They'll be able to see their donation history over time, so they'll be able to see all the donations they've ever made to any organization through the site and export those. They'll be able to get their own donation receipt emails that way. So you could set up a campaign on behalf of an individual. You just take on the responsibility of managing that campaign. Someone asks, we're planning on switching our website donate button to Give STL Day. Great. Do you know if there's a way to do the same on Facebook for the day of? Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, unfortunately. I'm not sure.
I do.
Great.
Neosha, okay. If you want to send me an email, I can walk you through that. There is a portion on Facebook has created a new feature that allows people to donate to their particular organization, and there is a way to do it and how you log in there, and all you have to do simply is just change the link. I won't go through that on this because this isn't a Facebook tutorial, but if you want to send us an email, I'll be happy to walk you through that.
Great, thanks for that. Carrie asked, so goals campaigns can only be created by donors, not organizations. So we wouldn't be able to create campaigns or for specific programs that we might host at the organizations. You can set up a campaign as an organization if you like, as I was describing before. You should be able to go in here to campaigns. Let's see if I can switch this over to show you. I think I was just in the wrong version. It thought I was on the actual day. So let's see if it'll let me do this. Yeah, so right now you can go in and create a campaign by pressing the Create a Campaign button there underneath your Campaigns tab. This establishes the campaign owner as you, the nonprofit. So you can create a campaign just like any donor would be able to create a campaign, but you're establishing it on behalf of your nonprofit. So this could be a program that you're specifically trying to raise funds for. Again, those donations have to go specifically to this campaign for it to be counted towards that goal, towards that dynamic progress bar that's going on during the day. Matching funds, Tamara, I'm not sure if I understand your question. Matching funds are required to be posted on the campaign page. The campaign page doesn't have to have matching funds. It actually doesn't have matching funds associated with it. Someone was suggesting that they might be able to use a campaign page as a different way of tracking matching funds. So you could try that, but traditionally the best way to use matching funds is to use the overview area here and to enter in, hit the edit organization profile button and indicate that you have matching funds and enter that amount. That's the traditional way. That's what most of the organizations are doing. Someone else just suggested that they might be able to do something a little different with a campaign. Looks like, Neosha, you have someone else who would like to know about the Facebook feature as well. So whoever it is that said that, you're actually anonymous. So we're not sure who that individual is. So reach out to Neosha to learn more about that piece. And Meg asked, and I think got her question answered there, how many multimedia items would you recommend posting? 3 to 5 is good. So Neosha's right on there. 3 to 5 is a good amount of multimedia items to put in there so you have a regular cycle going through, but a good amount of kind of dynamic content there. There's not, Meg, there's not a limit necessarily. You should be good to put as much as you really want on there. I would suggest, limit it to, I don't know what the upper limit is that starts to impact your page in any kind of a way. I'm not sure on that question. But I would say if you limit it to under, 7 to 10 multimedia, pick your best 7 and do that. You'll be in good shape there. You'll be in the safe area. If you go beyond that, I can't really speak to whether or not it would be, an issue for the page loading or performance issues or anything like that. So Lori asked, who should we send the email to for the Facebook change? And Neosha says email nfranklin@stlgives.org. So just looking through some of these questions or answering here. So Aaron is asking that we post Neosha's email address. So let me see. I'll just see if I can pull it up here.
I already did it. I sent it to everybody.
So you all have it now.
Yes, and then what I'll do then also, since people are interested, I will make a little FAQ document and post it on the resources section too. I'll make sure I do that today so everybody can see it. It's very simple to walk through the process. It's probably like 3 steps. So I'll definitely do that.
Great. So Stacy asks, can you cover what the fees are going to be that will be taken out of the total amounts this year? Will checks be sent mid-June again this year? When will lift gifts, if that's what they're still called, be added to the donation report? So cover fees, the fee percentage I believe is 5% this year, and that covers Civicourse fee as well as credit card processing fees. So that's encompassing of those fees, and I believe, Neosha, again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe the St. Louis Community Foundation isn't charging any additional fee on top those technology and payment processor fees.
That is correct. And in terms of the lift dollars, we're not calling them lift dollars anymore. They are just particularly during the power hours, which is outlined in the 2018 price schedule and rules sheet in the resources section. But those prize amounts will be added to your final report and your check that you will get in the mail. So you will not have that until we are able to reconcile all the gifts and add those prize amounts in there, but it will be within your check when you get that, and you'll be able to see that on a report that will be mailed to you.
Great. And then JJ asks if donors are able to share their campaign on other platforms such as Facebook, or will they only have the URL to share? So they'll have the URL to share, but they also should be able to share to Twitter or Facebook using these buttons down here. They should be able to share a little post to Twitter or Facebook there about their specific campaign, but they also can use their unique URL. So for this one, it would be, if we were on the live site, this URL would be givestlday.org/test1, or whatever the donor puts in, my campaign, essentially. So they'll be able to have their own short URL directly to their campaign page that they can share on social media, or they can use these buttons here to share in that way, and it'll kind of prompt them to create a post. Yeah, I think we addressed when checks will get sent out sometime before June 30th. And then we talked a little bit about the prizes. Okay, so I think that's about all the questions that we have. If you have any last questions, speak now, forever hold your peace. This is the last opportunity to ask them. Otherwise, thank you all so much for all your great questions, for being on this webinar. We are going to post this webinar, so you all will have access to this link here and be able to review any of the things we talked about today if you can't exactly remember what we went over. But otherwise, remember, please get your profiles set up, get your campaigns ready, get everything established by the 23rd, by next week, so that you can make sure that your profile and your organization has their best face forward for the day of. We're hoping for a real good day. We're expecting a lot of donors, a lot of donation, a lot of traffic on the site. And that's very much in part because of you all, and you all sharing, and you all posting about it and leveraging all your networks and getting people on the site to get excited and get active in giving to those causes they care about. So thank you all so very much for participating. If you have any follow-up questions that come up after this, feel free to email. I'm gonna put it to Neosha. Feel free to email Neosha, and if there's something she can't answer, I'm sure she'll send it along to me, and we'll get you sorted out. So thank you all again, and have a wonderful rest of your week.